What is going on, sports cards fans? Ray from Philly here, and welcome to another episode of Sports Card Memories. This here is episode number 5, where we discuss YouTubers out there that their history of how they got involved, the past, the present, and the future. I hope you've enjoyed the previous 4 episodes. This here is episode number 5, and we're going to be bringing in my friend Drew, and his YouTube channel is called the Drew A. Vintage Legacy. Drew, thanks for coming on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I appreciate it that you invited me. I'm excited. I know we've been trying to line up a time
Yeah,
over the holidays, which wasn't easy, but I'm glad we finally nailed it down, and I'm excited to be here.
yeah. So am I, man. I know the holidays were really crazy, but we're in a new year now, 2024, and yeah, I'm looking forward to checking out your collection and just talking about your whole history of being involved in this great hobby of ours. And tell a little bit about yourself to the people out there. We're going to start with your past as to
Okay.
when you started, when you got involved, if there was a particular person or friend or family relative that got you involved, and what were you doing when you first got started.
All right. I'll try to make it brief because I
Take
don't
your
know how
time.
long we got. But so I grew up north, and we just chatted about that, not too far from where you are up in New Jersey. And my family growing up, we were we didn't have a lot, and that's fine. I've got great memories, but I wasn't one of the kids that always had packs of cards or that kind of a thing.
Right.
But in 1978, my older brother had an accident,
Mhm.
and it was pretty tough. But he was in the hospital for about a week or so, and when he was there, uh, a pastor from our church, associate pastor, brought him, visited him in the hospital, and brought him a box of 1978 cards, packs. Like,
Right.
hey, kids like baseball cards. Well, we had never seen baseball cards before. I didn't know anything about them. My dad didn't collect them growing up. My dad grew up in New York City. He was a huge Giants fan growing up back in the 50s and all that. And so anyway, my brother, opened these cards, chewed the gum or whatever. Well, this was my first exposure to baseball cards, and really to baseball. I knew about baseball. I knew who some players were or whatever, but we didn't watch games. I had never been to a game yet.
Mhm.
And so anyway, 1978, and those were the only cards we had for a few years, probably up until the early 80s. And man, I studied those things. I learned about the game. If you're familiar with the 1978 set, they had a
Yep.
little game on the back where you could
Yep.
flip it over and see what your player did. So I knew the players. I learned their stats. I learned what an RBI meant, and I was just a kid, like learning this stuff for a number of years. And because of that, whenever I see a 1978 card, man, it brings me back. That little
Yep.
script on the bottom.
The
It's not a
cursive logo is great.
Yeah, it's not a super popular set, but man, when I really got back into this, I decided, you know what, I want to build that set,
Right.
and this is a precursor to what both you and I have enjoyed about this community. Way before YouTube, I was a big active member on Net 54, which a lot of your friend or
Mhm.
viewers know, and I decided I want to try to build this set. So I put it out there. I told the story about my brother, and I was like, "Hey, does anybody have lots of cards, commons? I don't care about condition. I had a few of the big ones,
Sure.
the Murray rookie or whatever." And I said, let me know what you want for a lot. I want to try to build the set. Well, there was a couple of guys that just rallied behind the story, and they're like, "Hey, let's build this set for this guy and get him his childhood memory back."
Oh my
And
God.
I started getting care packages of cards from this set. And I was like, "Man, no, how much do you want for this? How much do you want?" Like, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." And literally, it took about a month, and I built that entire set, and didn't cost me a penny. Like
Wow.
these guys just sending stuff. I had more, and that was really a huge introduction to the generosity within this community.
Yep.
And this wasn't even on YouTube.
Wow.
And
That's
and then
unbelievable.
yeah, and I had guys that were like, "Hey, I don't have any 78 comments, but I've got a couple of cards from 70 whatever. Take these and trade them or sell them and see if you can use it for towards the set." So I still have my 78 set.
Wow.
It's actually over there. I didn't bring it over here. But that was my introduction to cards, was way back then. And then through the 80s, as I got older into my teenage years, I was a huge baseball fan. I was a huge Mets fan, got into cards. Started, I didn't buy packs. There was a little flea market once a year, and I would go and buy the complete set starting in '85. And I remember it was $19 every year. The same guy had them for $19, and I bought. So I had all those sets, and I still have those sets. By the time I got into college, it was getting towards the boom. 89,
Yep.
89, whatever. That's when I got into packs, went crazy, got into Griffey, tons of Griffey stuff. And man, I was trying to get every Griffey card, which in 1989 and 90 seemed possible. By 93, not possible. The subsets, the whatever, and I had a ton. I've got hundreds of Griffies, and I have great memories, and they don't have much value, but that's okay.
Right.
And
But
that
you.
was kind of my early history
Mhm.
uh, into cards.
Yeah, the 1978 set, you had mentioned that, and that's the year I started, 78, 79. And back then, we weren't looking at the cards as a collectible thing because
Mm,
of the game in the back. My brother and I, he's older than me, he started in the early 70s, and he got me into it around 78, 79. And those games in the back was what got me involved, was to play a game in the back of that 78 set. And I thought there was going to be like that every year,
yeah,
but but then it just grew to 79, 80. But yeah, that 78 set is a classic to me because
yeah,
I'm the same age as you. I started at the same time. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
definitely.
it's great memories, and it's funny because I remember, looking at certain cards, certain players. I knew who Reggie Jackson was,
Hmm.
and I was raised to hate the Yankees. I'm okay with that, but I knew who he was. You know what I mean? And that classic Jackson card, the what was the record breaker card where he's down on one knee swinging. It just when
He's
I see that card, I'm like, it's my childhood is that card. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's got some
And
great poses with that swing with the knee down on the ground,
yeah,
77 or 78. I mean, they're just like classic poses.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah, so we're going to move a little forward now to current day.
Okay.
So now, I mean, if no one has checked out your channel yet, they got to check out your channel. I've been binge watching for several weeks now, and you know, your room is just phenomenal. I mean,
Oh,
it's just, I
thank
mean,
you.
I love looking at stuff. To me, it's all about not just collecting, but I love the display. I try to do the same thing in the back.
Mhm.
And so tell us about what you've been doing today. Do you still collect cars? Are you into more of the memorabilia aspect of it? And, you know, let us know what you're kind of doing today. And if you want to
Okay.
show off anything, go for it.
Okay. Well, I've got what I've done in the more recent stuff. So let's say since the internet, really, it's about 2000 or so.
Right.
I stopped buying packs. I just realized that was it was it was fun and exciting, but I always seem to lose. And I was like, if I really want the card, I just buy the card. And then I switched my mindset. And then when eBay came along, I got into that. And I built a few different collections. One was I wanted a Hall of Famer from a card from a Hall of Famer for every year they played, and that seems like a high and lofty goal now. But back then, except for a handful of guys, even in pre-war, it
Right.
really wasn't terrible.
Right.
And I did complete it. It took me a long time to do it, and I'll show you the last card that I got. In fact, if anybody watching, I brought it out here. If anybody watching is a Net 54 guy and you want to see who is he, my username on there is almost done. And the reason is I was one card away when I joined Net 54, and they was like, "What do you want to be called?" I was like, "Man, I am almost done with this collection." And I had one left,
Yeah.
and I actually found it on Net 54. And what it is it's a 1914 Polo Grounds Honus Wagner card,
Oh, man.
and that's the card that completed my run. And it's funny because after all the effort and time it took. And if you don't know this set, it's got a picture of the Polo Grounds on the back, and
Awesome.
I love this card. But the reason, or afterwards, I thought, well, I gotta look for something else, and I ended up selling off that collection. Except I kept all of my post-war cards,
Right.
and I sold all my pre-war cards to take my wife on a dream trip, except for five cards, and I still have those five. And one of them is the one that I'm glad I didn't sell. Well, actually, the ones I didn't sell is
Oh,
my Ty Cobb. I still have, um, and it's pretty beat up, but it's my Ty Cobb, and I'm okay with that. And then the other ones I kept were my Tris Speaker, my Lou Gehrig, and my Babe Ruth. So that, along with my my Honus Wagner. So,
Right.
but anyway, and I've done that where I get into a collection and I focus on it and then I complete it and then I'm like, well, now what? And I end up selling a chunk of it for whatever
Right.
reason and then start over with a new thing. I don't have any regrets with that. There's
Right.
some cards I kind of miss, but I always hold a few. One of them was I put a 1952 set together, 52 Bowman set,
Mm-hmm.
which I sold off, but I did keep this one, which is my maze. And
52. Yeah.
yeah, and this is the one I want to show because there's a pinhole in it, which you can see right above his hat there, if I can get the
Yep.
glare. And I'm absolutely okay with that. If you don't know, I'm a raw collector.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not against grading, but I've collected for long enough to where I feel fairly comfortable with identifying a fake from a real one.
Right.
I don't buy much, and I'm okay not having
Yeah.
graded cards. I have very few, maybe five or six still left. Um, but anyway, saying all that, it's where my collection has evolved, and I
Mm-hmm.
got to a point to where um, I kind of got priced out. Like I used to be able to get cards like that Mays or that Wagner, and I didn't have to spend a ton. And then I thought like, my collection grew to a point to where it was so big that I wasn't able to enjoy all of them.
Right.
And that's where it comes into what you said about display. I thought if I'm going to have these cards, I want to see these cards.
You
I
want to
want
enjoy
people.
them.
Exactly, and it's there's nothing wrong with putting them in a box if you know where they were. But I got to a point where I knew I had a card, but I don't even remember where I put it. And that's part of my disorganization. And I
Right.
thought, well, I want to display, and that's where it got to where kind of I am now is
Right.
I don't actively seek out a whole lot, especially in cards, because I'm happy with what I have.
Right.
Every once in a while, a card will pop up and be like, okay, I want to get that, but I've got to be able to display it,
Right.
and so I got into display, which is what you're talking about with my room. You can
Right.
see the magazines behind me. I've gotten into some magazines. I'll kind of do it a little bit. I've got this catcher's gear display that I made.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
That's just stuff that I found over the years. And again, it's like, well, it's cool, but what do you do with it? Well, I'm going to build a little shadow box for it. I didn't get it all at once. It's not from the same era, even, but it was cool enough to be able to put together and have and enjoy. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. Is
Yeah.
if I find stuff, I want to display it. So how am I going to do that? And I'm running out of wall space, so I got to figure something.
Well, that's the whole thing about the display. Like when in my opinion, when you get something, we were talking before we went on that there's a story behind almost everything, right?
Exactly.
If like when someone looks at it and they come into your room and they point this out, you know exactly there's a story behind that particular item. So do you have any favorite particular stories on what's behind you or in your room that you might want to share as to how you
Yeah.
got it or if there's a nostalgic aspect of it?
Yeah, sure. Because as I'm looking in, behind me, there's something I see that I'll tell you about. So, one of the things is I'm a Pee Wee Reese collector. I'm a huge fan of Pee Wee Reese, and I have some really cool items of his. I have his cards. In fact, I sold my Ernie Banks rookie card to be able to afford this card because I didn't think I'd be able to ever have it. And that's the 1952
Oh,
tops.
beautiful.
And the reason is that's one of those high numbers. And
Yeah,
I seriously only own two cards from this set, but I have to have it to have the whole run minus one, and
right,
it's in such an iconic set. But I had to be creative in how to afford it, which I thought if someone's like, "Do you want the Banks or do you want the?" Well, I had to take the Reese. I didn't like selling the Banks,
right,
but I'm okay that I did to be able to afford this.
right.
But I'll tell you a great story because, like you said, everything is a story.
Yeah,
And I've told this before on my channel, but of course, if you're a Pee Wee Reese fan, one of the cards is the 52 or 53 Bowman.
of
You
course.
know, and if you look at this card, it's pretty trash. I mean, it's bent, it's creased, it's whatever, and it's beautiful. And the reason is the story. So I'm gonna tell the
Right.
story real quick, and then I'm gonna tell why
Take
there's
your
something.
time. No, I love hearing this.
So when my wife and I were dating, we long distance dated, and when I turned 33 years old, she had sent me something or whatever, and she knew I was a card collector. Well, she had said, just so you know, I added $33 to your eBay, your PayPal as a gift. Find something fun. And of course, if you can guess how old I am, this was a long time ago. But anyway, in fact, now that I think about it, it was over 20 years ago, but 20 years ago. But I was like, oh, $33. What's a card that I could get for 33 bucks? And I was looking around or whatever, and I came across this card, and I literally it was in the 20s. I'm like, well, you know what? I'm all in. If I win, great, and if
Right.
not, great. So I put a bid in for $33, which is what I had, and I won the card for 33 bucks. If you can imagine, there was a point in time where you could get a card even in beat up
Oh
shape
my
for 33,
God.
but I could not believe I had this card. And here's the crazy thing about this story, if it's not crazy enough. When I got it, I did not realize that it is card number
Oh
33.
my God.
So what an insane story, you know what I mean? And I actually have a better copy of this because I built the set, but this is the one I keep displayed. The other one is actually in my set in the book, but this is the one I keep in my Peter Reese case because it was from my
That's
wife. 33. I mean, there's so many great
this is
parts of
what I mean. This is what I mean. This is what the hobby, in my opinion, makes everything. And baseball, I always say, is always romantic, and it's
exactly.
passionate. But the hobby is just like peanut butter and jelly. It's there's great. That's an awesome story, man.
Yeah,
Like there's like everything. Like I remember getting this card. My grandfather gave me this card, and he was a big Jimmy Fox fan. I mean, there's a story with everything
sure.
that you hold on forever. It's not just like it's cool when you win a card on eBay. It's got value. It's nice looking. But when you're collecting cards or anything memorabilia wise that has a story behind it, man, that just makes the thing more
Oh,
uh,
that's the
valuable to
yeah.
yourself. That's awesome. But
Well, and that's really why I started my YouTube channel because I was kind of losing interest. I wasn't actively acting building anything, like my collection. And I'm a good friend with Jake. Legends never die, and I've been for years before he was on YouTube. And he's like, Drew, just start a channel and start telling your stories. Just tell because he's been in this room. He's one of the few collectors on YouTube that have been, and he's like, it's like a museum, and it's just
yeah,
filled. Just tell your stories, and that's what my channel I'm hoping to do is if I get a piece or I remember a piece or a story, I just tell the story about it
right.
because how cool is that?
That's what
So,
makes it more fun too, is
yeah,
the stories, not just showing cards.
well, in continuing this story of this 53 Pee Wee Reese, I was on a live stream with Alex Bowman 53,
Uh
and I told the story, and again, and I've mentioned it a few times. And afterwards, he texted me. He said, "Hey, Drew, what's your address? I've got something for you." And I was like, "Well, you don't have to send me things." He said, "No, no, no." And so he sends me something, and you can actually see it. Kind of. I'm gonna have to move my screen because of the StreamYard. But if you look up above the catcher's thing,
Yeah.
uh, that is a magazine cover from 1948. That's the original photograph that they used for the 53 Bowman Reese. And you can see it. I'll kind of pair it up.
Yeah.
But that's the magazine cover. And it's just the cover. But the fact that he had an extra one, and he's like, Drew, you've got to have this. And so
Absolutely.
I keep it up there because not because I've run out of space, although I have, but it's in every one of my videos just sitting up there. And that leads into my current thing of what I'm doing with my collection is building the community.
Right.
I never would have met Alex if it wasn't for being on YouTube. You know what I
Right.
mean? I'm on YouTube because of Jake, who encouraged me, who's already on there. I
Right.
wouldn't be sitting here today with you
Right.
if it wasn't for the fact that you got my number from Picker Jim
Picker
S,
Jim.
who lives up there in New England, and only because I was on a live stream with him. And that's the great thing. That's a
Yep.
community. That's what I'm loving is learning
Yep.
people, getting to know them, watching their channel, seeing their excitement.
Right.
You're a PSA graded registry guy. I'll never do that because it's just not my thing. But
Right.
man, when you get something, or Chris from Missouri, who's a good friend of mine, grabs something, or Mike Baseball, I'm excited for you guys because I understand
Sure.
that thrill of finding it, adding it, checking it off the box, and being like, "Look what I got." I love it. That's the
Right.
story. That's what I love. So that's what I'm doing now is I'm just building my community. I'm adding very few things,
Right.
but the things that I add have so much meaning.
Right.
One of the things that I got this year, which was another gift from another YouTuber, which fits perfectly into where your next segment's going to be, which is where am I going? But we talked about this, all these magazines up here I got as a gift from Jack, Cracker Jack Cards, and his dad. His dad's name is Greg, who had this huge collection of magazines. And they said, Drew, we want to send you some stuff, and they did. And man, they're these great. I'm trying to lean the right way. You got this is so hard. If you've never done this, this is hard. You
I
got
know.
Pee Wee Reese and Jackie Robinson. You got Jackie Robinson here. You've got other magazines. I can't lean the right way. Pee Wee Reese is over there. Whatever. And it's just these great magazines. Well, in the box, they sent me this, and I had never seen this before, but this is an advertisement, probably from 1952, that was in a different magazine, in a comic book, actually. And I'm also a big Stan Musial guy, and it is a cartoon, a comic
Oh,
of Stan Musial advertising Wheaties, which at the time, he did the Wheaties stuff, and
wow.
uh, and it's like Stan comes in the game and they're down by a run or whatever. It's very classic 50s. He eats his bowl of Wheaties and he ends up scoring the winning run, and
Right.
the kids are like, "Eat your Wheaties," and I mean, how great, how nostalgic. That's so 1950s to me,
Yep.
and it's a combination: the color, a player, an advertisement. I love that stuff,
Right.
and
Right.
I just love it. Another advertisement. I'll do this because I'm going through all my guys. Carl Erskine fan, and if you've not seen some of my Carl Erskine stuff, but I want to show this card in particular, which you'll recognize because it's a set that, in my opinion, is gaining more and more popularity. But it is the 1954 Red Heart,
Red Heart.
and it is, for a set that was not bubblegum related, it is so 1950s to me.
Yep.
And it's just even the backs have that great feel, with the
Yeah.
stats and stuff. Well, I had built the Red Heart set, and I have a complete set,
Oh,
and I built a display for it. And I'm trying to think of what video I have it in. I mean, you can go back and look at my Red Heart display set, which I did a while ago.
okay.
Or I did a video somewhat recently. I'm trying to think of which one it is, and I talked about it again. I think it's in the background of my thumbnail. So if you look at my more recent ones, you'll kind of see it. But it's in a frame, and it's hanging on the wall. And actually, it's across from where I'm sitting now. So every time I come and sit in this room, I'm
That's
looking at
yeah.
that red part set, and
That's a beautiful set. I mean,
it
I'm
is.
looking for the Stan Musial. We were talking about Musial, and
Yeah,
he's in one of my set, the 300 great baseball cards. And yeah, that I mean, the red backgrounds, the blue backgrounds. I mean, that's just it's become an iconic set. It's
yeah.
really become an iconic set.
Well, and with only 33 cards in the set, it's super easy. But
Hmm.
here's what's interesting. Of course, at the time, they knew who great players were, but they didn't know who was going to be in the Hall of Fame. Not really. Well, out of the
Right.
33 cards, 12 of them are Hall of Famers. And that's a better ratio of Hall of Famers than any other set out there. You know what I mean? But outside of obviously the Mantle or the Musial, you've got Snyder and Spawn. I'm looking at it now. Minoso, who I love any Minoso stuff. Nellie Fox,
Yep.
Rick Ashburn's in that set. Red Shane Dinks. There's so many guys.
Right.
Beautiful set, and the fact that I could actually display the complete set is rare
Is
because
yeah.
tops for Bowman are too big, and I love it. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it.
Would you say the 50s, that's your niche, like the golden age? Everyone says that's really the golden age, and to me
Yeah,
it is, but the 50s are so like every not just Tops or Bowman, but Red Heart and Wilson Franks, and
yeah,
there's like the most beautiful sets in artwork and
yeah.
artistry in the 50s. It's just
Hmm.
would you say that's your favorite decade as far as like collecting and cards and memorabilia? For me it is, definitely.
Probably, yeah, probably because of what you've mentioned. New York was the center of the universe in baseball. My dad grew up in New York in that era,
Yep.
so he saw a lot of these players. A story that I think is kind of funny. My dad, like I said, grew up a Giants fan, so he was a huge Mays fan. He was actually a big Bonnie Irvin fan. But my dad had a paper route, and when he was a kid in New York, and he lived in Queens, and he won a contest, and the winning prize was a ticket to Ebbets Field to see the Dodgers. And he was upset. He was like, "I don't want to go see those bums. I want to see my team." But he reluctantly went with my grandfather. And now, when we talk, I'm like, "Dad, you saw Jackie Robinson, you saw Pee Wee Reese, and you saw these guys." He's like, "Yeah, but damn bums, he just does." So but I'm like, "You went, and I'll never get that chance. I can't, can't, I can't
Right.
experience that." But he got to do that, and he understands now.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's the 50s are just such a great era, such a great decade uh, for baseball, for U.S. history of the changing culture and
Yeah.
everything. and then also the collectability, because there was so much competition for kids' pennies and nickels, and competition will breed innovation. And so whether it was Tops and Bowman, or like you mentioned, Red Hart or Wilson Franks, which here's another one. There's my Carl Erskine Wilson Franks.
Yep.
The only one I have from the set, but another great set. Like, look at these two cards. They just scream 50s to me.
Yep.
And
The uniforms, the hats, everything is
yeah, the
just 50s.
colors, yeah, it's just great. And neither of them were Tops or Bowman. And
Right.
so guys that are always looking for the big card, look for some of these small sets, and look for not Mickey Mantle. I mean,
Yeah,
of course he's iconic, but there's great players that deserve the love to be able to be chased, and their cards are just as pretty. So
absolutely.
anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. Is just enjoying what I
Yep.
have, delving into it, meeting people, learning more, and I'm really enjoying that. So.
That's awesome. Well, so we've delved into the present now, where you're into like magazines and cards and other memorabilia.
Mhm.
What are you now looking forward to the future? I mean, we had touched a little bit before we went on something that had Stam Usual on it. I'm
Mhm.
starting to get into that now.
Yeah.
Uh, what is your thoughts on where you would like to, I, head into the future and go into what direction?
Okay. So, what you refer to, and we'll talk about it, is you had mentioned something you're getting into,
Yeah.
uh, which is vintage vinyl records that show baseball players. And I went and I was like, "Oh, you mean like this one?" And you're like, "That's the
That
exact
was
one."
amazing. I was like, I just bought my first one, the Stam Usual hit record, and you use like this one. I was like,
Yeah, yeah. And so this is the only one I have. And again, this has
same
got
here.
every it's got everything that I would love. So again, it's a player that I love. It's vintage. It's classic. I mean, the back has got some cool stuff, and you said you have it too. But there's
It has
a
the manual inside.
yeah, it's got the manual that's got numbered pictures. And if you listen to the recording of it,
Yep.
it goes in picture number one, like you mentioned, picture number one, I'm doing this, or how to grip the bat, or how to do whatever. And it was just an instructional
Yep.
thing for kids. What a great thing! And this again, and the way I collect, a buddy of mine was at a garage sale, saw a bunch of records. He was big into vinyl and whatever. And they had $2 on it. He's like, "Oh, Drew would like this," and he bought it and gave it to me. So the fact that one of my best friends thought of me at a yard sale and was
Yep.
like, "Here, again, now I've got the story, now I've got the item, now it's got the history,
Yeah.
and everything."
It
And as we were
intertwines.
talking, yeah, as we were talking, you're like, "There's so many out there. There's one with Pee Wee Reese and Jackie Robinson."
Yep.
I'm like, "This was seriously, folks, 30 minutes ago. Ray
Uh-huh.
mentions this," and I'm like, "Well, I know what I'm looking for today, because now there's something I didn't know existed."
Actually, Picker Jim has that record. I think it's called Louisville Slugger or Little Slugger. It's a blue cover and it has Pee Wee Reese and Jackie Robinson on there. Phenomenal.
I've got to look that up and see, get that on my Christmas wish list for next year. So, um, but
Yeah,
that's
so that's
go
it's. Is there anything else that you were thinking about gearing towards before I had mentioned the vinyl records? Was there something that you might want to gear towards in the future?
so in a little bit, because I don't even know where it went. Oh, I want to get the actual Wheaties cards that would come along with the Same Usual ones. Those are some cards I don't have. I'm looking for anything kind of unique that's not Tops and Bowman from my guys, and the guys that I collect, like I mentioned, Pee Wee Reese, Carl Erskine, Stan Musial. Uh, while I do like the other players and iconic
Hmm.
stuff, if I can find the oddbally stuff of them, and then how to display it. And
Right.
for Christmas, because I'm going to go into current but future how I do this, my wife found some really cool items for me for Christmas. And so I just finished this. I haven't shown this on YouTube, so you're getting the exclusive. But I made this. I didn't make the shadow box, but I had it. So I put all this stuff together, and it's Carl Erskine's stuff. And
Oh man.
and that's just cool to me. So
Yes,
that's
it
like
is.
a little mini Brooklyn Dodgers pennant. Um, there's very little Carl Erskine stuff, because he was a good player, but he's not Hall of Fame or whatever.
Right.
But there's this really cool cartoon clipping that she found on eBay
Beautiful.
of him. And then this is the only playing days card that I didn't have of him, which is the 1960 New Scoops. I have the 61, but this is the larger one,
Right.
talking about the strikeout record that he set in 1953 against the
Wow.
Yankees, where he um, struck out 14 players. I love Carl Erskine,
Yeah.
and I'm glad the Hall of Fame recognized him a lifetime achievement this last year. The fact that he's still alive,
Yep.
he's still married to his wife. They got married
Yep.
in 1947. His story outside of what he did on the mound in life is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I would encourage anybody to look up Carl Erskine, find out what he did, find out where he's connected, find out about his life, his testimony, his just his character and everything he's done. And if you don't know who he is, I guarantee you'll be like, how much is
Yeah.
a Carl Erskine card? Like, when's his rookie? And you'll be looking for him because he's just one of those guys you want to have a representation in your collection.
Right.
So, but that's what I'm looking for is stuff that kind of pairs up with what I already have. So
Right.
whether it's a record or a pin or whatever, I just like that kind of stuff.
Right.
And this year will be the first time I am going to the national. So
Oh, wow.
I haven't. A lot of people know that, so it's not a huge secret. But I haven't really announced it. But yeah, I'll be going to the national
Nice.
with Jake, staying with Jake and Sammy Thunder, and I'm gonna have not a huge budget, but man, getting to see and shake
Ah,
hands with so many of you guys is going to be a blast. I have one big boy card to me that I want to pick up, and if I get it, great, and if
right.
not, that's not a big deal
Right.
because it's been around for 60 years, so it'll be
Yeah.
around again.
The
So
National is unbelievable. I've been to two of them, and it's overwhelming. It takes a couple it takes a couple days to walk around because you thought you saw everything and then you didn't.
yeah,
And it takes a couple days, 2, 3 days really easily to walk around and see stuff. And I definitely recommend recording what you're looking at so that you can always go back and see, oh my God, I saw that, because it's so much you're not going to remember what you saw. So I highly recommend recording it as much as you can, just to catalog it, and just to look at it, years from now to see all this great stuff. But yeah, I mean, your room's amazing. I love the stories behind it. It's what makes this the YouTube community and the hobby. It makes it, and you enjoy it even more, because if we didn't have YouTube when we're doing this by ourselves, it's like, whatever.
exactly.
But when you can show it on video and other people show it and you collab and you meet at shows, man, this makes this thing 1,000 times better.
Yeah.
And so I really, I appreciate you coming on and showing and sharing your room and your collecting history and what you're doing now, and what your goals are for the future. So I just want to thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate it. It was an honor for you to ask me, and I'm glad it finally worked out. So
Yeah, no
I
problem.
really appreciate it.
Well, I'm gonna post the link down below on this video of your video of the Red Heart set.
Okay.
So I'll look for it. I'll find it. And if anybody wants to check out, because now I got to check it out. I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of your videos, and that one, and I love that Red Heart set. I'll be watching that this afternoon. So,
Yeah. It's
uh,
about. It's been over a year and a half since I posted
okay,
it. So
cool.
you can way back in my archive, but it's in there.
No problem. So, yeah, I'll post that down below. And I want to thank you for coming on, and thank you everyone for tuning in for Sports Card Memories, episode number 5, with myself and Drew from the Drew A Vintage Legacy. Check out his channel. That'll also be linked down below. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Like I always say, have fun with it and see you real soon. Bye bye.